Important hearing. 2 years ago, the Office of Personnel Management suffered one of the most damaging data breaches in the history of the federal government. This went on for some time, and there are still additional details that need to be learned. But the counterintelligence value of the data that was stolen will last for an untold amount of time, a generation or so. So it troubles me to hear reports that maybe some of the things that led to this haven't necessarily been changed at the Office of Personnel Management. We have a number of questions that I think we need to explore. For example, are legacy systems still in use for backup investigations? Is OPM employing good cybersecurity practices such as dual-factor authentication and network segmentation? What is the plan to transition all of OPM systems off this legacy technology? When will OPM stop using unsecure and vulnerable legacy technologies such as COBOL and start using maybe some modernized solutions that can be put on the cloud? What is OPM protecting inside of the network and not just, how is OPM protecting the inside of the network and not just the building the cyber walls higher? Will OPM adopt a zero trust model as part of their cybersecurity strategy? You can't steal what you can't access, and a zero trust model makes life much harder for the hackers. These are some of the questions we'll continue to ask and explore. We said it in the committee's data breach report, and I'll say it again. Chief information officers matter. They really do matter. That's why we have two of them on the panel today. Federal agencies, particularly CIOs, must recognize their positions are on the front line of defense against these cyber attacks. And as a government, we're on notice. Leadership at federal agencies must be vigilant about the ever-present national security threats targeting their IT systems. And especially in OPM's case, where the IT systems are protecting some of the most vulnerable information held by the federal government. The National Background Investigation Bureau, also known as NBIB, was partly born from the failures at the Office of Personnel Management. When OPM last testified before the committee in February of 2016, the NBIB had just been announced. During the hearing, questions were raised about the accountability and how this new organization would operate given the split responsibilities with OPM overseeing NBIB and the Department of Defense overseeing the IT security of the NBIB. Today, we'd like to answers to those questions, assurances that we're moving in the right direction, and that and also as to when the new organization will be fully operational with a secure IT environment. Was the creation of the NBIB simply a rebranding effort, or does the NBIB represent real change? At our last hearing, we talked about how the many security clearance processes fail to check social media of information of the applicants. The day before our follow-up hearing in May of 2016, the Director of National Intelligence issued a new policy permitting the collection of publicly available social media information in certain cases. We'd like to understand how this policy is being implemented and if it is effective. Finally, the clearance process seems to be getting worse while the reform process continues. My understanding is, at least based on an OPM management memo of October 2016, there's a backlog, at least then, there was a backlog of 569,000 cases. That's quite a list. It does beg the question as to why we have to have so many background checks, but where are we at in terms of the backlog? And why, despite all the reform activity, is the clearance process taking longer? In fiscal year 2015, it took an average of 95 days to process a secret clearance and 179 days for a top secret clearance. In fiscal year 2016, it took an average of 166 days to process a secret clearance and 246 days for a top secret clearance. It's quite a jump in the timeline that it takes in order to get there. More than a decade ago, the security clearance data and processes were transferred from the Department of Defense to OPM. And now there's talk of transferring this process back to the Department of Defense. We also have the newly created NBIB, where OPM and DoD have a shared responsibility. And we need to get this right, make sure that we stop just moving the organizational boxes around. As we continue our oversight of the transition of responsibilities from OPM to the NBIB, we need to continue to ask about the efficiency and making sure that at the end of the day we're protecting and securing the United States of America. So there are a tremendous number of people that are working on IT issues. We will have additional hearings and discuss that. I personally do believe, and this is at some point I would like to draw this out from you, attracting and retaining IT professionals has got to be a challenge for the government. It's a challenge in the private sector. It's a challenge across the board. I was fortunate enough to have a newly minted son-in-law who's in the IT field, and the opportunities for him for employment were unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it, which is good as his father-in-law. That's a good thing. But on a serious note, I do think we have to address on the whole of government, not just this particular field, but the whole of government, how do we attract and retain IT professionals? Because we do need so many of them, and there's so much vulnerability for the country as a whole. So this is an important hearing, and I appreciate you being here.